A pleasant morning to each and everyone, especially to our beloved instructor, Ma'am Leonora de Vinagracia. We are the Group A, and as we can see on the screen, our assigned topic is all about David Ausubel subsumption theory. But before tackling that, give me time to introduce myself and my fellow groupmates. I'm Rana Jan Jerusalem Sabanal. I am the first reporter. The second one is Roxanne Marie F. Patinga. Last but not the least is RJ T. Sinya. We are all BSed Science students. Before directly proceeding to our topic, here is the learning outcomes that we are expecting to our listeners at the end of this report. First, we expect that they can demonstrate an understanding of Ausubel subsumption theory. Second, discuss the 4 processes for meaningful learning. Lastly, they can explain when to use a specific advanced organizer. And without further ado, let us know how Ausubel came up with this theory. So, this theory began in an argument in which, according to Ausubel, many educational psychological theories often criticize the expository or presentational manner of teaching. They say that teachers assume such as a major role in learning as provider of information, while students remain as a passive receivers of information. And instead of criticizing this manner of teaching, Ausubel proposed ways of improving it. And this is by suggesting the use of advanced organizer, which is a tool that he believes students can no longer be a passive learner during the discussion. And moving on in this matter, this sort of theory will make students form and organize knowledge by themselves, because they are the one who integrate or link the new lesson to the previous lesson for them to acquire new knowledge. Second, this theory also emphasizes the importance of verbal learning or language-related learning, which she considered to be very effective for learners ages 11 or 12 and above. So it makes this obviously effective to grade 6 or 7 and above students, which Ausubel considered to be very effective. Third, this theory will make students gradually learn to associate new knowledge with the existing concept and their mental structures, because learners use their previous knowledge as a foundation and build on it with new things that they learn. Lastly, to ensure meaningful teaching, it is necessary to avoid rote memorizing of facts. Student needs to manipulate ideas actively. It is because when we train our students to just memorize all the information to them, we are not teaching them how to think. So, there's a tendency that they will forget the new information that we are teaching, since they are just memorizing it. They are not internalizing the information given to them. So, as a result, their learning are not meaningful, and this leads them into a poor problem-solving skills. Due to the reason, rote learning, in contrast with meaningful learning, is a non-substantive incorporation of new knowledge into cognitive structure. As you can see in this graphic organizer, this will be the outline or will be the flow of the whole discussion about Ausubel subsumption theory. So, now let's talk about the biography of David Paul Ausubel, which is the creator of Ausubel subsumption theory. Talking about his life, he is an American psychologist and educator. who grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Ausubel, born in October 25, 1918, and died in July 9, 2008. Not just that, he was nephew of the Jewish historian Nathan Ausubel. Ausubel and his wife Pearl had 2 children. Talking about his education, Ausubel attended University of Pennsylvania, majoring in psychology for pre-med. He graduated at Middlesex University, earned PhD in developmental psychology from Columbia University, started to practice psychiatry. Talking about the work of Ausubel, which is one of the developmental and research and advanced organizer, and this is most significant contribution to the field of educational psychology, cognitive science, and science education learning. Influence. Ausubel was influenced like the teaching of John Piaget. His ideas of conceptual schemes are similar to Piaget. Also, the commonalities with Gestalt theories, schema theory, and Brunner's spiral learning model. So, like what I have said earlier in the previous slide, Ausubel was mainly concerned in his theory of learning with how people acquire knowledge. He pointed out that people acquire knowledge primarily by being exposed directly to it rather than through discoveries. In other words, Ausubel believed that understanding of concept, principles, and ideas is achieved through deductive reasoning. Proceeding to the main theme of the theory. The main theme of Ausubel's subsumption theory. First, knowledge is hierarchically organized. Second, new information is meaningful to the extent that it can be related or attached or anchored to what is already known. Third, once a learner successfully attach this new information to their existing knowledge, this is where meaningful reception of information takes place. Lastly, how individual learns large amounts of meaningful material from verbal or textual presentation in a school setting. Now, let's proceed to the focus of Ausubel's theory. The first one is cognitive structure. Learner's cognitive structure is the most important factor influencing learning is the quantity, clarity, and organization of the learner's present knowledge. Include facts, concepts, prepositions, theories, and raw perceptual data that the learner has available at any point in time. The second one is advanced organizer. Since the learner cognitive structure is the most important factor influencing learner, this should be strengthened. That is why Ausubel proposed the second one, which is advanced organizer, to use in order to allow students to already have a bird's eye view or to see the big picture of the topic they've learned. So, as a teacher, it is better to give your new insights and knowledge about a particular topic or giving hints of the topic. In doing so, you can make your students active and participative. Not just that, it will take longer your communication between you and your students during the discussion because they all have the idea of knowledge in the topic you are about to teach. And third focus of Ausubel theory is subsumption. So what is subsumption? For Ausubel, he believed that subsumption is a primary way of learning because during meaningful learning, the person subsumes new knowledge into old knowledge. Our mind has a way to subsume information in a hierarchical or categorical manner if the new information is linked or incorporated with prior knowledge or familiar patterns. So, I can conclude that our knowledge or existing knowledge about a particular object helps subsume new knowledge. That is why if we have knowledge of a particular topic, we can easily subsume it. By that way, we can gain new knowledge. And this will end my report, because my groupmates will continue for further discussion about this topic, and hoping you learn from my report. And that's all. Thank you.
So there's a lot of purpose of Ausubel's theory give us. It helps introduce a new lesson, unit, or course. It helps summarize major ideas in new lesson or unit. It is based on students' prior knowledge. It shows similarities between old material and new material. It allows students to transfer or apply knowledge. It provides for structure for new information. It helps teach complex material that is similar to information learned previously. Subsumption theory, David Ausubel proposed 4 processes by which meaningful learning can occur. The first one is derivative subsumption, followed by correlative subsumption, superordinate learning, and combination learning. Derivative subsumption describes the situation in which the new information you learn is an example of a concept that you have already learned. So what is this? So for example, suppose you are acquainted to the concept of a fruit that is juicy, crunchy, sweet. So if you saw or hear about fruit, you'll think it's juicy, soft, and sweet, or anything that describes the concept of a fruit. And that construct you already know is your existing knowledge or your knowledge about fruit. Now, suppose you encountered another kind of fruit, let's say an exotic fruit. Since it's exotic, you're not familiar with this. For example, a persimmon fruit. You are not familiar with this, but you already know it's a fruit, because it follows your existing knowledge of fruit, and that is your new knowledge. So, your new knowledge about persimmon fruit is attached to your concept of fruit. Your previous concept of fruit without altering the concept in any way. That is what you call learning. So, in other words, if you combine or add your existing knowledge and your new knowledge, it will form learning, and that's how derivative subsumption occurs. The second is correlative subsumption, is when you add new details to what you already know, usually a higher order concept. For example, using the same example of the first one, suppose you are not acquainted with the concept of fruit, but when you encounter the nutritious contents of fruit, like for example, its dietary fiber and vitamins that it contains, in order to accommodate this new information, you have to alter or extend your concept of fruit to your previous concept of the food. So, correlative subsumption, it only describes your basic knowledge about fruit. Here in correlative subsumption, you are creating higher order concept using your basic knowledge, must enhance or extend the flow of thinking strategies to understand things better, so you can say that this is more valuable. That derivative subsumption, since it enriches the higher level concepts, so a new material is an extension or elaboration of what is already known. The third is superordinate subsumption, is you are already familiar with the things but didn't know the concept itself until it was taught. So for example, imagine that you were familiar with fruits, berries, vegetables, greens, and meats, but didn't know what are those things until you were taught that these were all kinds of healthy diet foods. In this case, you already know a lot of examples of the concept but didn't know the concept itself until it was taught to you. A new concept is learned under which already established ideas can be subsumed. The fourth is combinatorial learning, is when the newly acquired knowledge combined with prior knowledge to enrich the understanding of both concepts. So for example, to teach someone about how you must get energized throughout the day, suppose he or she acquired the knowledge that is because of gasoline, the car can be able to move and oxygen fuels a car. Using this previous acquired knowledge, you can release that on his or her new knowledge. This is because their concepts are both related to each other, and you could think of this as learning by analogy.
Hello and good day everyone. I'm Ara Jane Senya, the last reporter of Group 8, and I will report about advanced organizers as part of Ausubel's subsumption theory. Advanced Organizer is a major instructional tool proposed by Ausubel. It prepares students for what they are about to learn and can help provide links between new ideas and similar concepts. Advanced organizers can be used at the beginning of a class or a new unit of study to provide framework for new information that will be presented during the lesson. It helps the instructors and students focus on information that is important and essential to be learned. Ausubel also believes that when students use advanced organizers, they can bridge the gap between learning new information and the information that they already know. This type of instructional routine does not only provide a pre-class planning opportunity, but it also aids in priming students' background knowledge. Additionally, advanced organizers can be used to facilitate active learning, something that increases students' performance in test-taking and concept application. There are two known benefits of advanced organizers. First, you will find it easier to connect new information with what you already know about the topic. Next is that you can readily see how the concepts in a certain topic are related to each other. There are also things to be noted about advanced organizers. Advanced organizer is not a summary or review of a previous lesson, nor provide a structure for the current lesson. It provides a structure for students' thinking. It acts as a conceptual bridge from the old information to the new information. A student's existing knowledge about a concept is the most important factor in whether new material will be meaningful and how well it can be learned and retained. Now, let us go to the types of advanced organizers. The first one is expository. Expository gives students a broad idea of the lesson's purpose before the lesson begins. It may present students with more detailed information of what they will be learning, especially the information that may be difficult to understand. Expository provides students with the meaning and purpose on what lesson is to follow. Expository advanced organizers are useful when audiences have little or no knowledge similar to the information to be taught. It describes a new content being introduced to the learners. For example, the teacher directly shows an image about the parts of a neuron instead of asking the students. You, as the teacher, you already expose your students right away to this topic, which is very new to them. The next one is the narrative. This type of advanced organizer presents new information in the format of a story. Of course, this includes storytelling. Stories can stimulate students' thinking and help them make personal connections to the new information. This includes reading short stories, watching video clips, or providing personal stories. Like for example, the teacher might tell an interesting story that relates to the important concepts in the lesson to be learned. This will surely catch the attention of the students to be attentive in class, since stories are somewhat interesting and relatable, right? Next is skimming. Skimming is when the teacher provides the learners with the opportunity to skim over the information that is about to be introduced, focusing on the highlighted information. Skimming provides students with the opportunity to develop a picture of a material which will be addressed and allows them to organize new information. Questions can also be provided to guide the skimming processes and help students access prior knowledge of the subject. Like for example, when beginning a new lesson, the teacher gives students 60 seconds to skim an article, for example, a word problem, paying close attention to headings, subheadings, and the first sentence of each paragraph. This will help students become aware of what information they will be learning on later on when they read the article more carefully. Last is the graphic organizer. Graphic organizers also provide students with guidance on what the important information is in a lesson or a unit. They visually represent information that students are about to learn. Graphic organizers structure information visually or in pictures. These are efficient because it highlights and focuses on just the important aspects, and it also shows the relationships between the necessary informations. They give students a direction and by providing a visual representation of the important information. With this, it's easy to see what is important and the relationships between the ideas and patterns in the information where they exist. There are many types of graphic organizers, but I'll be stating only 5. It's the T-chart, sequence chart, Venn diagram, main idea web, and concept map are some of the many graphic organizers which are available. Now let's move to the application of principles of Ausubel's theory. The first one is that the most general ideas of the subject should be presented first and then progressively differentiate in terms of details and specificity. Ausubel called this as progressive differentiation. He said that the purpose of progressive differentiation is to increase the stability and the clarity of each anchoring ideas. The basic idea here is that if you're teaching 3 related topics A, B, and C rather than teaching all topic A, then B, etc., then you would take a spiral approach. That is, in your first pass through the material, you would teach the big ideas in all 3 topics. Then on successive passes, you would begin to elaborate the details. The second one is that instructional materials should attempt to integrate new material with previously presented information through comparisons and cross-referencing of old and new ideas. In conclusion, as an overall review of our group's report, Dr. David Ausubel's subsumption theory is concerned with how individuals learn large amounts of meaningful material from verbal or textual presentations such as lecture or books in a school setting as opposed to theories developed based on experimental setting. It is also suggested that our mind has a way to subsume information in a hierarchical and categorical manner if the information is linked or incorporated with prior knowledge or familiar patterns. The purpose of this theory is to help the learners to introduce and summarize major ideas in a new lesson, unit, or a course. Therefore, learning is based upon the kinds of superordinate, representational, and combinatorial processes that occur during the presentation of information. All in all, Our group's topic is best shown in this graphic organizer. First, Ausubel's subsumption theories focus are the following: learner's cognitive structure, the use of advanced graphic organizer, and subsumption, which was thoroughly discussed by my fellow reporter. Then the next one is that subsumption theory has 4 processes for meaningful learning, which was explained by the second reporter. And lastly, is about the types of advanced organizer, which my report is all about. And that ends our report in Dr. David Ausubel's subsumption theory. We do hope that you learned from our discussion today. Thank you for watching and God bless!